It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, everybody. This is your feel-good breakfast show here in S3. It's time to get serious for this Thursday. Now, we live in a world where cameras are everywhere, from surveillance cameras to the increasing number of lenses on your phone. It's hard for people to invade them. Well, for safety and security reasons, this should be a blessing. But when we're talking about ethics and the right to privacy, how beneficial are they really? Well, we're calling our friend and expert in law, director at legalease.co.za, Eitan to answer the question, in a world where we are increasingly being captured, how far do our rights to personal privacy extend? It's a very good question. Hello, how are you?
I'm great.
I almost feel like I want to sue all my friends for uploading all these like uncute pictures of me on social media. I'm like, what is that? That doesn't even look like me. But can I sue anyone who uploads, content on social media that I do not approve of and that maybe compromises my character?
Okay, there's a lot in that question. First of all, I mean, suing is, that's kind of going right to the final step in it. There's a lot of things you can do
in between.
In between.
Don't just like want to sue them.
Exactly. So, so I think to start off, it's to say, we do in South Africa have the right to privacy. It's enshrined in our constitution. Right? The Constitution guarantees everyone the right to privacy, and then it's up to the laws to kind of make sense of that. And one of the very relevant things that happened last year is this POPI Act was enacted, which is the Protection of Personal Information Act. And that set a whole lot of new laws around what people are allowed to do with your personal information, your photograph, what you can upload, what you can't, and what data you can store of other people's. So suddenly we do have lots of more rights that are fleshed out around privacy.
What about when it comes to children? Because that is always my biggest fear, like people taking pictures of Luca, of my son, and then uploading it onto social media or to websites. Sure. What about them? Are there any rights and laws that protects them? Yeah,
definitely. So children have a heightened right of privacy in the law, right? So they are considered special subjects. So you need to be extra cautious when taking pictures of children. Essentially, you need a parent's consent, right? So for someone to publish a picture of someone else's child, they need to get the consent of that parent. So definitely, if someone has posted a picture of your child on social media, well, your first step is to go to the social media site to go to the person that posted it and ask them to take it down. You can then go to the social media site and ask them to take it down because there wasn't consent. And thirdly, then you could go to the information regulator and file a complaint with the regulator. Then there are certain there would potentially be certain criminal actions for posting pictures of children. But yeah, so certainly I think that's something everyone should know about. If you're collecting any data around children, that's children's locations, personal details, if you're a school collecting data of children, if you're running a swimming school and you have the information of a whole lot of the kids that come to your school and you're keeping that on your computer, that really needs to be managed very carefully.
But here's the thing, what if they're using, these pictures and this footage for marketing purposes?
Sure.
And it's already out there, it's already maybe promoting a campaign.
Yes.
Can I then ask them to be remunerated in any sense for using these pictures?
Yeah, definitely. So it's actually quite an involved question that it's more involved than it seems, right? So if someone is utilizing you for commercial purposes, you have to work out which right of yours they're touching on. So we have a right to our likeness, our character. And so if someone is utilizing, you're a public figure, right? If someone is utilizing your value in your brand as a public figure to promote their company, then they are essentially taking something from you. So you would have a right to it. That's very different to if you get caught in a picture in public, right? You're in a public space and there's a group shot and you're in the background. That might be different because we have people have the right, you're allowed to, in certain circumstances, you're allowed to take pictures of public spaces. So it really depends which right they're touching on. But certainly, if someone is utilizing your image and something that belongs to you, your name, your likeness, to promote their brand or promote their company and getting commercial gain, then certainly you have a right to some of that gain.
What if they have the footage of me and my child and they're not releasing it anywhere, but I want to request that data and say, you know what, you can't use it, I want it back. Am I allowed to do that?
Totally. So this is one of the really important things that's been enacted with Poppy, which people should know about, right? Suddenly, you have the right to request information around your data that's being stored. And that's for the different websites that we belong to, social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And that would also be on people's phones. So, you know, if I have a picture of you on my phone and you want it taken off, you can request it. And if I refuse, you can go to the data regulator, the information regulator, and file a complaint against me. And so that's some of the new laws that we have around to protect our privacy around data.
I love that there's laws and rights in place, so you don't just have to go like the expensive way, hey, I'm suing you, because I just want to sue everyone. I'm like, you got a picture of me? I don't look cute there. I'm about to sue you. But of course, we are going to be back in a moment figuring out, so now what with lawyer Eitan Stern? Don't go anywhere.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, everybody. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show. Before we get back into the law, early on we were playing Gran Turismo, and we still left Zoe where she is right now. She's still continuing playing on the floor.
For a while.
Trying to beat
the show.
Carl Wasty's score right now. We'll have to check in with her a little later on to find out, did she actually get to win Carl's time? I know she already beat my time, but she's screaming, yes, something happened. But now it's time to get serious again and get back to the law, because, of course, we are continuing our discussion with lawyer and director at legalease.co.za, Eitan Stern, as he breaks down the rights we have to personal privacy in an increasingly documented world. Whew.
Sure.
This is hectic, because I think you and I were speaking about, like, back in the day as models, you were trying to like hustle the system or, you know, do stock images, and people can actually use those images years later. When it comes to that, what rights does that person have in the footage and using that years later?
So I think that so that kind of steps away from the data point of it and gets to the whole like kind of personal rights aspect of it. And I think it's important for anyone who is in the business of having their photograph taken. That's, you know, models, actors, people that like celebrities that are, can I call you celebrity? Public figures that are going to events. Like if you are ever in the business of getting your photo or video taken, then it's really important to read the rights that you are releasing, like what you're signing. And often these release forms can be very broad. So you might say, well, listen, you can use my photo in perpetuity forever in any context without giving me any remuneration. And if you sign that, then they can use it in any context without giving you any remuneration. So it is very important for you to be thinking ahead in what you're signing and never sign anything that might negatively affect you in a couple of years' time. So those release forms that people might just sign, you know, that is quite important to kind of review and get right.
Because it will come back at you. You could have been taking a picture 10 years ago, and then 10 years later you find your picture on a billboard somewhere in Alabama. I don't even know.
Exactly.
Speaking about that, can footage taken without your consent be used in a court setting?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Look, in law, you've often got balancing of different rights. So, as I've said, you have the right to not to have control over your image and where it's used. But on the other side, we have all these evidence rights in court. And courts need to be able to people need to be able to bring evidence to court. And there'll be a balancing of these two rights, and they'll need to look in the context which right wins. But generally, evidence is going to be an exception where one's right to data privacy is going to be limited. So, you know, depending on what the image is and what the context is, generally court rights will overrule other rights.
This is something I also wanted to ask you, because as a creative, and I see this on platforms like TikTok and even Instagram, where people are putting their work out there. Can someone steal your work and claim it as their own? Like, what rights do they have of the property of work that you're putting out there as an artist, as a creative? Where do we draw the line there? Okay,
so the difficulty here is it's very hard to draw lines around copyright, right? And we do a lot of work around copyright for creatives, for companies. And copyright, there's often going to be these gray areas. But the idea is when you're creating something, art, photography, music, the protection that you have is called a copyright. And you have, once you own a copyright on something, you own that intellectual property. And someone can't steal it without your permission. So there are certain things that you can do. You know, for example, with, if anyone steals it, you have a right to kind of claim damages from them. But the problem is the internet is not a safe place. And once it's out there, often it's out there. So my first bit of advice to people is if you have something that you don't want to be stolen or copied, don't put it on the internet, right? That's step number one. Then if you do, you can start to take some practical steps. If you're putting photographs out, watermark them or put low-res pictures out. If you're putting music out, you need to make sure that people aren't able to download that music or download high-quality versions of that music. So it is important for you to start to put a strategy in place. If you create intellectual property for a living, you need a strategy around what you're going to do to protect it. Because, as we've said, it is difficult to sue someone if they've stolen it. So rather, don't put yourself in a position where it can get stolen.
And again, read that fine print. That fine print, they'll tell you that you can use this images, you can use that information for anything out there.
Yeah.
It's so important.
And often it's not fine print anymore. Like some of the social media companies do it really well. Like on YouTube, they copyright terms, the fine print, are now these really cool videos and with the Sesame Street characters. They make it really easy to understand. So my first bit of advice to anyone who's looking to understand their rights on social media, go and look at the social media sites. They're in the business of telling you these things very clearly. So that's always a good place to start.
Eitan, son, as always, it's so good to have you with us.
Sure.
I hope that session helped you read the context, read through everything. And of course, you can reach out to Eitan, son. You can find him at legalease.co.za.